The 34th edition of the Mitropa Cup began today, Sunday, in Meierhofen in Austria. It features teams from, well, roughly Central Europe, as the name suggests, and it's a 10-player, all-play-all team event. There's an open section and a women's section. And, well, Austria, I think, are one of the favourites. They have the strongest player in the event. Markus Rager is board one for them. But the team that I'm tipping to be one of the big favourites is the German team. They have two very strong teenagers, Matthias Blubaum and Dennis Wagner, who are really up and coming. Watch out for those names. And, well, I'd like to feature a game from their match today against Italy. They crushed Italy 3.5-half. And let's have a look at this game between Luca Moroni, playing with the white pieces, and Andreas Heimann, representing Germany. He's playing black. Heimann, also a young player in his early 20s, and, well, has a very healthy ELO rating already. So, let's see. Moroni played c4. So, it's an English, and d5 from black. So, black is trying to sees some kind of initiative in the centre already, breaking open the middle of the board, and white doesn't want to push with d4 or e4 but plays with g3. So I mean, this is a very well-known position, and black drops the knight back to c7, avoiding any tricks with the knight on d5, and black is aiming for a kind of Morozzi bind position. So you can see that black already controls more of the centre, actually, with this pawn here, and in some positions might play the pawn to e5. So it's an ambitious way for black to play. And a3 from white, okay, it's a standard move. Often white will want to advance with b4 to chip away at black's central position. g6, okay, you can choose between playing the pawn forward to e5 or perhaps even e6, or bring the bishop out this way to the long diagonal. Good move. And here, well, there are lots of moves. It is possible to play b4 here. You could play d3, castles, even h4. But white played a very unusual move, knight to a4, and I think perhaps after this game this move might remain rather unusual. The knight swings to the side of the board, attacking the pawn. Well, this was defended with knight e6, and we can see a contrast between these two knights. We have a knight on the edge of the board, and black has two very nice centralised knights. Let's bear that in mind for the rest of the game. So why exactly is this knight out on the edge? I'm not sure exactly. I think black deals with this this problem of perhaps potential threats to c5 very well. First of all, bishop d7 just reminds white that this knight is a little bit vulnerable at the edge. Bishop e3. Okay, so now we see the idea. White is trying to put some quick pressure on this pawn on c5. Bishop g7, good move. Pressure here. And now if knight takes c5, then actually this is a little bit uncomfortable for white, because, well, this pawn drops here, and then there's this check. Well, because this bishop is en prise, actually white isn't losing anything, but this is still rather awkward to deal with. So instead white castled, but then after b6, just shoring up these pawns here, actually black is doing fine, and this knight really does look as though it's stuck out on a limb. Well, white tried to prove otherwise with rook b1. Rook c8, good move, just bringing the rook off this long diagonal, and it's on a very useful square on the c file. Now, it would be a real admission that this knight move is a failure if white dragged the knight back, and then simply knight d4. Very nice outpost for the knight here. So, I mean, white didn't want that, understandably, so continue with this strategy of attacking on the queen side. Now, very often b4 can be a good move in this kind of situation, chipping away the pawn on c5. But here, after this exchange, it rather highlights the fact that this knight is very poorly placed at the edge. Great centralization with this knight. I mean, what a contrast between these two pieces. White exchanged. And then, I mean, really, if white is going to bring the queen into play and connect the rooks, then this knight has to go on d4. So this was exchanged off. But obviously, you know, with the two bishops, black is already doing quite well. White continued with this plan of advancing this, well, pawn minority on the queen side. I mean, positionally, this can be very nice to cramp these two pawns, but, well, with some control over the c-file, in fact, this pawn is rather vulnerable. Black is already doing quite well. Castles, finally. And now, for example, I mean, the logical way to play this position would be to drive the bishop back. But here, I mean, black, just with very simple moves, is doing quite well. So there's control of the c-file. This knight is looking very poorly placed. And, you know, perhaps black can break things open with e5. So it's not easy for white. Queen b3 was played, but the queen gets pushed back with the bishop. And now rook c2. This is already rather nasty, attacking this pawn. e3 is still probably the way to go for white, and try to dig himself out of a hole there. But bishop f3 was played. Not a good move, because after bishop h3, suddenly white's king is vulnerable. If the rook moves, then, I mean, this is brutal. Check and queen d4, and it's mate, incredibly, just like that. I mean, it's gone downhill so quickly. So white had to start improvising, rook c1. And now, there's a very simple way to win a pawn, and a huge pawn, in fact, with rook takes pawn. If the rook is taken, queen d5 forces checkmate. That pawn can't advance because of the pin. Instead, black played queen c7. It's also a very strong move. And there's a remarkable position after the exchange on c2. This is Zugzwang, actually. Incredible position. The queen has to keep hold of the rook. This knight is dreadfully placed. If the rook moves to the side, for example here, then black just gains ground with rook c8. If the knight moves here, well, again, that pin is a disaster. It's incredible. White doesn't have a move there. So I think this was clearly black's idea. It's a very clever idea. Rook e1 was played. Rook c8, really simple. Okay, rook takes rook is possible here for white, but it's still pretty bad. Instead, white chose bishop c6. And, well, queen e5, incredibly, is winning straight away. This wasn't played, I should say. For example, if rook takes rook, queen f6, hitting this f-pawn, and after e3, rook takes bishop, followed by queen f3, and that's checkmate. It's absolutely brutal. Instead, black chose rook takes rook, which is also winning. In fact, after this, white's position is just collapsing. Also, it's less spectacular, but also completely winning. This bishop is, well, just being undermined. And the game finished like this. Queen c4, and after pawn takes pawn, well, if queen takes bishop, then you can see mate is threatened, as well as the hapless knight. And after bishop takes b5, this was the game continuation. Queen b7 threatens mate and the queen, so white resigned. If only white could just transport that knight from a4 to f3 to guard some threats, but I'm afraid, yeah, what a sorry tale that is. I don't think knight a4 will be repeated rapidly. Let me just show you one more game, and that's from the Hungary-Slovakia match, and this is between Kozak and Druska. Here, black has a total bind. In fact, another Zugzwang position. You can see that bishop controls these squares beautifully. The rook can't be challenged here. It's just a horrible position for white. If black wanted to, I think moving the queen around to the king side to attack here would win very quickly. But black chose a very clever move here. King h7, just asking white, what are you doing here? And, well, white fell on his own sword with king h1, which allows a very sweet tactic. Bishop d1. Now this rook is undefended. The bishop move cuts the connection between the rooks, and the queen is threatened too. So that's that. White resigned. So look out for more round reports on the Mitropa Cup. They're playing every day for the next 9 days. It's going to be a very interesting tournament. See you soon.